The New Orleans Saints just hired their new head coach, Kellen Moore, and he's coming into a very interesting money situation here for the Saints as they are once again the team with the worst cap situation heading into the 2025 offseason. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we are going to attempt to figure out what the Saints might end up doing with their money to get below the cap and see what players they can add or re-sign from their free agency list and from the free agency list as a whole throughout the NFL. But before we get into that, if you like the content that we put out and you want to help the channel grow, the easiest way is hitting that subscribe button, tackling that bell, and while you're at it, leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Saints do with this free agency class and who you'd like to see on the roster come 2025. So, Ryan, let's pull up over the cap here. So, we're going to walk through the free agents here, and then we're going to kind of show on the calculator that they have here kind of some of the things we think that they can do or maybe even need to do and talk through some of our decisions in general. But here, when it comes to like just the overall free agents, guys like Will Harris, Juwan Johnson, Chase Young, Lucas Patrick, those are some key contributors overall from this team. And it's like, so how are they going to address these guys as a whole? Chase Young is still actually going to be on the team. I think this is just one of those void years where they already paid him all his money, so he's on contract for free. If I'm not mistaken, because it looks like he's on the roster as of right now, especially too when we go to the calculator here in a second. And so, but there's some other guys I think they're going to be very interesting on what they end up doing, such as like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who was an absolute like explosive player for the Saints and fit really well within that offensive system, but he was free agent for a reason. Like are they going to want to bring him back? But some that's going to depend on Rashid Shaheed in general. I think Paulson Debo is another guy. What do they do with him with their overall cap space? Because he's coming off a very major leg injury in general, and so how do they want to approach his contract? So they're in a very interesting situation here for a lot of guys, even to like Peyton Turner, Willie Gay, as well. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that's major over here that are noticeable names that played some serious minutes.
Paulson Adebo, uh, like he didn't play a lot of time, but I think he broke his femur, so that's
Yeah,
one that I think
exactly. Yeah,
could be interesting. But yeah, there's not too many other guys at this point that I think are free agents for the Saints that like were key contributors, other than some of the guys up there at the top. And also, I did look it up. So void years is a like they put it in contracts, but the teams usually never have intentions on actually paying the player for that season. So they're called void years because if you signed a 2-year contract with in the second year is a void year, then more than likely the team is just going to cut you at that point.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, so that's very interesting overall then. And so it means like then too when we go over to the calculator here, and you're going to see kind of the end result of everything that Ryan I've done. Ryan, if you want to scroll up a little bit, um, we were able to get them 225-ish million in cap space, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the other players that we think that they might sign. But going into this though, they're at negative 54 million cap space as of the recording of this video, according to Over the Cap. So a lot of it too is, and even too, if you're Saints fans, you're thinking about like, how do you work the books? How do they do this? And I'm sure there's maybe some other ways that they can restructure some deals that they can add on to some guys as well. But I think one of the biggest things though to start off, and the thing that would clear up the most amount of cap space, and I think it's a legitimate question if we start at the very top, is the quarterback position as a whole. Derek Carr's time in New Orleans hasn't really been that great, except for him
yeah,
and his financial situation. I would say he's gotten paid a lot. Taysom Hill, you're next on who we're going to talk about. He's actually had a great financial situation down in New Orleans. But
yeah,
if we're being honest, though, with Kellen Moore coming in, Derek Carr's obviously not going to be his long term guy. You need the cap space. And by no means do I think Spencer Rattler is going to be the guy. But I think he's worth like the stopgap guy to take a shot on
yeah,
though. It's you're everybody's going to talk about his film and his numbers from the latter half of the season and like how he didn't produce. He was on a practice squad of a team. He didn't have any of the star players around him. His offensive line was mainly backups as well. Then they were playing against some of the top teams as well during that time. Well, I would say
yeah,
every week, all not all weekends, a week out, but like against Green Bay, that Green Bay defense was just going to eat them alive. He had nobody to throw to.
yeah.
I don't even think Bub Means played in that game. So
Yeah,
who was he going to legitimately throw to? And
Marquez
so
Valdez-Scantling.
I
Like,
don't actually I
that was
actually
his
don't even
top
know
receiver, I think, in that game.
I actually don't even know if he played in that game. Let me go back and double check. Let me see here if
Yeah.
that's he that might have been the week 16 game that he missed. I'll go back and double check here when I throw it over to you. But I do think a trade to Derek Carr would be beneficial for the Saints team. You clear up the quarterback room. This is going to be kind of I feel like this is going to be a wash year for the Saints anyways with a new head coach coming in. Obviously, you want them to be successful, but I think this is a 3, 4, 5 year process for the Saints team to get out of this cap situation, and you start that by you got to unload your biggest contract.
Yeah, and I do think that there will be some suitors for Derek Carr. I think you look like the Raiders; they have a significant amount of cap space and a decent amount of draft capital. The New York Giants as well, who like these teams that are not quite in um, quarterback range in this draft. Which, by the way, like even though the Giants are, I still feel like making a move for Derek Carr might not be a bad idea as like a Kirk Cousins esque move for the Atlanta Falcons. Not saying that they would draft a rookie quarterback after that, but I do think that it would be possible. Go sign a veteran quarterback, see what next year's quarterback draft class looks like, and just kind of punt on that whole position. The New York Jets is like another potential landing spot as well. And so, like, I feel like there are teams that are going to be willing to trade for them. The downside of that is you're going to trade your quarterback for probably a fifth or sixth round pick, just because that team is going to have to take on a lot of his cap space, that or his a lot of his cap hit, and I think that's going to be tough to swallow for Saints fans. You're going to move on. You guys are probably we've been saying it for years on this channel, but I do feel like this is finally the year where the Saints just have to eat it and get ahead on the cap. And so I think that to me leans to trading Derek Carr and going with Spencer Rattler. Speaking of quarterbacks on the roster, Taysom Hill, he's 35, starting to have injuries pile up. He's getting paid a lot of money. So if you cut him post June 1st, you can save 10 million on the cap space this year. And those two moves alone, I think, put them either really close to or back in the black in terms of cap space. And the rest of the moves are just so that they can re-sign some guys that are going to be unrestricted free agents, go sign external free agents if they need to, and then also to sign the draft class that'll be coming in.
Yeah, and to your point though too about how it would get them close to even at least, just those two moves alone would get them to about 4 million over still. So you can easily go do a restructure, which is what we did with Eric McCoy. We added on, I think it was like $3 or $4 million, which put them back in the black as well. We also did move on from Demario Davis. I know he's a popular player down in New Orleans, but with his age and then also this cap space situation, you move on from him as well as you would clear for the $4 million with the post June 1st
Yeah.
designation as well. And real quick too, just going back to Spencer Rattler, I did find out that was the game that even Marquez Valdez-Scantling didn't play. Was that Green Bay game? Foster Moreau,
Jeez.
Dante Pettis, Jawan Johnson were the leading receivers. All had 2 catches, and the most yards they had was 33 yards. So like that's what I think. That's what I think. Just going back to moving on from Derek Carr and Taysom Hill, and like let's give it to Spencer Rattler. There is some talent there. Is now does he have it between the ears? That's going to be a big question mark. But really, for this year, who cares? You're just trying to figure out like how to get through this year and find good players and start that rebuild. So we did something similar as well. We did add on a couple bucks as well to Cesar Ruiz's contract as well, which cleared up some more space. And then we did end up cutting Tyron Matthew, which that cleared up 7 million in cap space as well. And actually, I take that back. We didn't cut him; we traded him
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
I think that's another similar one too. You can move on from him. Once again, a
Yeah.
popular player, yes, but if you're trying to figure out how to get above that cap space as well, he is hitting 33 years old. I bet there would be a contender team that would take him, and they would give up another fifth round pick, also just getting some more picks for this New Orleans team.
Yeah. No, and I think even then, like you might get a seventh back for him. Like there's a wide range of outcomes, I think, for that trade. This is where I think we kind of get into more of the conversation part of this. So Chase Young and Jawan Johnson both have void years. Do you want to cut them post June 1st? That would save some money, I believe. So Yeah, that would put it at 32, and then 30, actually 37 if we cut both of them. But they are both on void years. Uh, I don't know, like I can undo it, but
So I'll be honest, I just don't know. Maybe Jawan Johnson, I could see that. Even though we do have Foster Moreau also being cut as well. I think Chase Young. I think they keep Chase Young. I mean, he had 5.5 sacks on the season last year. I think then too, if you're going to be moving on from some of these veteran guys as well, you still got the young talent. I'd be curious to kind of see what Saints fans' thoughts are on this, but who knows what's going to happen with Cam Jordan as well. If he's going to retire also, and what that's going to do overall to the team. So I can see Jawan Johnson being cut, and then they find some tight ends, some other, or maybe they restructure his contract in
yeah.
some form or fashion.
My
But
I agree that there might be interest in the Saints to bring him back, but it is a void year of the contract, and so I do think that he hits the open market, and it does add 37 million, so that gives him 22 million in cap space to go play with.
oh yeah,
So
and the reason why Ryan's saying 22 is we're going to try and get each team's cap
yeah,
space close to 15-ish million as well.
yeah,
That way, then they can re-sign. Or they can sign the draft picks. And then also, then too,
yeah,
after the signing of draft picks, they'll have some money left over as well for in-season signings. That happens a lot. So um, that's why we're saying 22 million. Okay, yeah, let's keep it that way, and then they can always re-sign him as well.
yeah,
We won't do that here. We'll leave that up to the Saints organization. So, a couple other ones though, just kind of rolling through as well. Foster Moreau, I think, is a guy. If they cut post June 1st, I'd save about
yeah,
$4 million. Maybe they would do that with if they're going to move on from Juwan Johnson. Maybe they don't do that, but once again, maybe they can re-sign both of them to another contract of similar value. So I think a for sure cut candidate is going to be Jamal Williams. One, they drafted Kendre Miller to back up Alvin Kamara anyways. He's younger. This is going to be a running back class as well, where you could go and take a 6th round pick and get a really solid running back to help contribute. But also, too, then you combine all that, you cut him, then you're going to be saving $3 million. And for a team that just needs the money, I I think you don't need a 30-year-old running back who's probably going to be your
yeah.
third or fourth string. So,
Yeah,
so
especially too, you traded 2 players away for day 3 picks in a really deep running back class. If you really want a 3rd running back on your roster, just draft one at that spot.
exactly, yeah. So, uh, there maybe could be a couple other guys that they cut. We even thought too about like cutting some of these other like
I did
guys
cut
down
one,
here,
but
like Matthew Hayball.
yeah,
And so like you can save $1 million there. There's maybe a couple other $1 million that we can go through as well. But we won't be too nitpicky on that because if they do that, they'll probably re-sign somebody of a similar value. So it would be kind of a wash. I do believe a couple of guys that they will re-sign here is I do think that they'll re-sign Lucas Patrick as well. Go and get a couple $1 million. It just say 2 years, $4 million or something like that. And somebody like Will Harris, I do believe would be something similar as well to just what I've been seeing from like guys of his overall contract value. And so with that, then too, so be for $4 million or so that would be coming down the pipe here.
at 4 million a
For
year.
no 4 million total. Let's just do 2 million. Uh,
Okay,
4 million total.
okay,
So So if we do that, that puts them at 35, and then that does give them a little bit of a splash to now kind of go and maybe get somebody here. And I think one of the things too would be interesting, like we talked about tight ends as well. Like what would be some of the other free agent tight ends that they'd want to bring in? They probably would bring in Jawan Johnson back if that's something that they'd want to do. Because just looking at it right now, pretty subpar overall outside of that. What other receivers might they want to be to bring in the market here? I don't think they'll be in the Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins range as well. Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, or Chris Godwin. I don't think that they would do that. I think a couple of guys that would be of interesting note that I think would complement them well. If there's guys like a Robert Woods or a Marquise Brown or Darius Slayton as well, they would be in the 6 to 7, $8 million range. But I think it would be a good veteran receiver to go alongside Chris Olave and would help out a young quarterback in Spencer Rattler in this scenario. So which of those guys here, let's have one of those guys. Which of those guys do
let's
you
do
think would be
Hollywood Brown. I think Darius Slayton might get closer to 15 million. I think on the open market, and I just don't know if the Saints would be willing to do that. But I think Hollywood Brown, if you can get him for like a 1 year, $6 million kind of prove it deal. I also think too, with the amount of speed that's already on that roster, I think Marquise Brown would find a nice role in that
Yeah.
slot position. Uh,
I think he'd be a little
for
bit
them.
more than 6 because what was his contract here with, Kansas City? I know, like, that worked there. So he was 1 year, 7,000,000. I bet it'd be something comparable. Um,
Really,
and,
after he was injured, I mean, we can do it. But
yeah,
I like do
let's
one
keep
year
it
seven.
similar. Yeah,
Okay,
let's do 1 year, 7.
okay. So yeah, we'll do 1 year, 7 million. And then we can, if you want to do Jawan Johnson, uh, like they could probably get him for a couple million.
Let me go back and see, and I'm looking at Spot Track now for this. This is going slow now too. That, Saints.
I guess, and they actually owe him money. So if they extend him, like that would take, like they owe him 4.5 million over the next, well, I don't know what that would be, but
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, let's do that. Let's do something similar. According to they're saying that he would get about $10,000,000 in his overall contract. I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that overall according to Spot Track. Um,
Well, then here, let's do 45.
sorry,
Let's
$10
do
million
four.
dollars like on his average annual salary. That's what I meant to
Oh,
say. And so
oh.
I don't
Well,
know if I
then
agree with that, but I do think something like 6 or 7,000,000 I think per year.
let's just do it 1 year. That puts whatever they owe him puts him, I think, right at 6 million. So let's just leave it at that for now.
Okay.
And I think that's a decent uh value there. And actually, that probably updated
Yeah.
wherever he was
Yeah,
on here.
I think another thing too as well when you're looking at this team, like so they did move on from several key veteran like defensive front seven players. So who are some of the guys that are coming to your mind as of right now that are on that free agency list on like the defensive end, defensive tackle side?
Yeah, so Levante David, although they just moved on from a 36-year-old linebacker, I don't know if they would want to go with a 35-year-old. Dre Greenlaw is another one that I think is in their price range, but he would kind of max out, I think, what they would do. An interesting option might be Isaiah Simmons, a really athletic linebacker from the Giants. Let's see, EJ Speed might be another affordable option. Robert Spillane is going to get a nice contract. He is not I think in their
No, that
price range
and the Raiders have the money
to
to
bring
pay
him
him.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's go with EJ Speed. I think that's one right now. I think his average annual contract value is about 4 million, and I think they could probably get him for about that, maybe a little bit more. Maybe send like 6 million his
That
way.
sounds good.
Well,
Let me look up his market value here according to Spot Track. Yeah, it'd be about 5.5 million.
okay, so
So
uh let's do 5.5, and then we'll just do that over 2 years.
okay.
I'll just do 5 million just to do that. But that brings it down to 20. So we still have about 5 million to work with. Are there any defensive interior guys that you would want to go after? I mean, Nathan Shepard we got rid of. Or maybe another edge rusher that would be a little bit more affordable on the free agent market
Yeah, that would be interesting too because it kind of comes back to that conversation from earlier. Is if they'd want to maybe get Dante Fowler Jr., who's coming off a great year. Now his status might, I mean, Washington might want to keep him, but his value might go up. But if we go look at his contract though, his cap hit was only 3.2 million last year for Washington, and so if we're trying to push that 15ish million, I do think maybe like a $4 million deal might bring him over as well. Maybe get a little more production out of him than what you saw from Chase Young, who was really just a pass rush rotational guy.
Okay. Is that you said Cleveland Farrell?
No,
Or
Dante Fowler.
okay.
Yeah, his teammate. It's
Okay.
DANT.
All right. So yeah, we'll do 2 years, 4 million
Okay. I,
1 year. And just, 'cause, 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 'c adding some depth here. Do the Saints have a lot of draft capital in this upcoming draft?
I believe they do, and they will in this scenario where they trade away Derek Carr and
Very fair.
also
Yeah,
Tyrann Mathieu. So as of right now, they have 8 picks, and in this scenario, then too, if they do that, let's say they trade for 2 5th round picks, which ironically they don't actually have um, any 5th round picks. So actually, let's say it's like a fifth and a sixth. Let's say they get a fifth for Derek Carr because of the cap space, and the
yeah,
sixth for Tyrann Mathieu. That would put them at they would have 5 day 3 picks. Six day 3 picks actually at that point, 4 top 100 picks as well. And I that's very serviceable for a rebuilding team and kind of going down this
yeah,
scenario as well. And to your point, as you can see here, so we were able to cut some guys like we cut Derek Carr, we cut Taysom Hill, we traded away we traded Derek Carr, cut Taysom Hill, traded Tyrann Mathieu, cut some other guys as well, extended some of the interior offensive linemen also. I'm not sure who are you looking at here, Bobby.
So Bobby Brown, I was just they had about 2.5 million, so I was just gonna go find a defensive lineman to kinda a younger
Yeah,
defensive lineman, to come in and replace, some of the guys that they lost. So, do that, it puts them at about 16 million in cap space. I think we can kinda call it there, for the, like, major additions, that they're gonna do this offseason.
yeah, and so they really improved, I think, on that defensive side of the ball, bringing in some veteran guys that can provide a lot of good minutes. While this year it's going to be very similar, I think, to Carolina, where it's like they're going to need to get some veteran guys in to provide some good minutes, but they're also going to have to draft well and hope that these 8 to 10 picks, depending on if they make trades or not, are going to be guys that can that they can build around and get a stout defense, stout offensive line, good skill position players as well. And so I think it's going to be fascinating with the Saints. I mean, every year they're in the same position, and every year they find ways to get out of it, and then they're going to end up 6-11 or 8-9 again, like just kind of
Yeah.
in this consistent state of mediocreness or
Yeah,
mediocrity.
and so obviously we're not the best at manipulating the cap and doing that. But I do think when it comes to the long-term outlook of this organization, I think it is very important that they do of if it's not this season, hopefully soon, just bite the bullet and let kind of their cap reset instead of restructuring contracts each and every offseason. Because the way that we did it, they have 65 million in cap space next offseason and could really go out and make some major improvements through free agency. Where this year, I felt like they had to let go of a lot of veteran players. They had to restructure some veteran players' contracts. And next year, they would be extending players and
Yeah,
giving players more money, going out and signing other free agents and bringing them in and making this team better instead of just maintaining. And I feel like that's really important for the Saints organization going forward. Instead of being in cap hell for perpetuity, bite the bullet, put yourself in a more positive cap situation. If it's not in 2025, in 2026, you'll be very thankful that you just bit the bullet and went ahead and ate some of that cap.
yeah. Nope. It's who knows? They probably won't, but we think they should.
Yeah, and this is what we would do. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this video. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And other than that, we will see you guys next time.